Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another time that we can come before the Lord in prayer with the Lord's Prayer. I am grateful and excited to be before you this morning, thankful for this is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. My name is Joy Hampson, and I'm excited to be the vessel that God is using in this time to bring forth prayer, to bring forth what is on the heart and on the mind of God. And we're going to continue in our relationships as we talk about God and Moses, right? Moses is an exciting character. Moses, you know, I used to have a friend. She passed away, and she always cracked up at the movie. I don't remember what the movie was called, but she would always say this line, and she was always saying, Ramses, right? The way she says it, and she would just crack up at how they would say it in the movie. But Moses is a special person, not character, special person in the Bible, in the scripture, who God uses to do a great and marvelous work. And we're going to jump right on in. So the story about Moses begins in Exodus 2. Moses, his brother Aaron, and his sister Miriam, they're all a product of Jochebed and Amram. That's his father and his mother. Moses was born in a time where Pharaoh desired for all baby boys to be killed as they were being born, right? He felt as if the Israelites were taking over. It was too many of them, and we needed to reduce the population. Does that sound familiar? The exact instructions to the midwives was when you serve as a midwife to the Hebrew woman and see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, you shall kill him. But if it is a daughter, she shall live. The midwives feared God more than man and did not follow the orders of Pharaoh. Not only that, the Israelite women, would always give birth before the midwife could even arrive. When Moses' mother when Moses' mother conceived him, she saw that he was a fine looking young man. He was radiant in all his light. And she was afraid that they were going to do the same. So she hid him for 3 months until she couldn't hide him any longer and decided to put him in a basket. Right? She made a basket, she weaved it and put him in a basket, put him by the bank of the Nile River. And Pharaoh's daughter went out to bathe in the river one day, and her servants found the basket and brought it to her. So she unwrapped it and found that there was a baby inside. And as she found the baby inside, she said, "Oh, this must be one of the Hebrew women's children." So his sister, essentially Moses' sister, said, "Oh, let me go find a Hebrew woman to take care of this child for you." So she finds the mother of Moses, and the mother of Moses essentially gets paid to watch Moses for the next couple of years. And she would later return him to Pharaoh, to Pharaoh, to Pharaoh's daughter, who will then name him Moses, right? And the name Moses meaning to extract and to draw out. Now, as he becomes an adult, he favors the Israelites, right? He favors the Hebrew people. He sees an Egyptian beating one of the Hebrew slaves, and he steps in to try to remediate the situation, but he ends up killing the Egyptian. Bum, bum, bum. And in another instance, he sees two Hebrew men arguing and having a dispute, and he tries to go break that situation up. And one of the Hebrew men says to him, "Are you going to kill me like you did the Egyptian?" Bum, bum, bum. Moses then flees because he's like, okay, I've been found out. I can't stay here any longer. He flees to Midian for 40 years. And that's where Moses' first God encounter takes place, right? Which is in chapter 3 of Exodus. And it's the burning bush, what we've come to know as the burning bush experience. Now, God doesn't approach Moses about what he did in killing the Egyptian. He presents himself to Abraham. He presents himself to Moses in a burning bush that is not consumed. He tells Moses to remove his sandals because where he is holy ground. He then tells him who he is. He's the God of, he responds to him and says, I'm the God, your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hides his face. This is how most of us behave when we're guilty of something, right? Whether it's a child to a parent, whether it's a friendship or a employee-employer relationship or pastor and congregant relationship, right? When we know that we've done something wrong or we're guilty of something, the first thing we're going to do is hide. When a child does something they're not supposed to do and their parents start to call for them, they hide. Straight panic, sheer fear takes over. If you owe your friend money and they call you, and they could just be calling you to say, hey, but you don't answer the phone because you know you owe them money. And it feels like bill collectors, right? Or your employer says, I need a report by Friday at 12 noon. 12 noon, you hide out. You're like, oh, I'm going to lunch. They can't find me. I'm on my lunch break. It's my time. And you're running. And a lot of us act this way when it comes to people in our lives, but we also do it with God. We think that we're so guilty that he won't accept us, that he won't take us in, that he hasn't already forgiven us. He mentions nothing about the incident that Moses did ever at all, period, with a T at the end. He mentions nothing about it. Instead, he just presents himself to Moses and tells him who he is, right? He tells him that he wants him to go back to that place. So essentially the same place that you killed this man, the same place that you ran from. I need you to go back there and go to Pharaoh and let him know, make the request that God wants him to let his people go. He even forewarns him that Pharaoh will not let his people go unless compelled by a mighty hand. So God says he will stretch out his hand and strike Egypt with all the wonders that he will do in it. And after that, Pharaoh will be sure to let them go. Moses asked God, who will I say sent me? These people are gonna look at me like I'm crazy. He says, I am that I am sent you. Moses asked God, what if they don't believe me or ask for a sign? So God gives Moses 3 signs to give them if in fact they ask for a sign. And these are the 3 signs. There was a staff that Moses was carrying, and God said to reach out with his staff, and he turned the staff into a snake. And then God told him, grab the snake by the tail, and it turned back into a staff. The second sign is when God asked Moses to stick his hand in his cloak. He stuck his hand in his cloak and he came out and his hand was full, like leprosy, white, full of leprosy, skin diseases, skin conditions, all of it. And then he said, put your hand back in your cloak, and it came out as normal. Then the third one is, if Pharaoh didn't believe the first 2 signs, the third one was Moses should take water from the Nile River, pour it on dry ground, and God will turn that water that's on the ground into blood. Now, I don't know about you, but it's enough for you to do one sign. I'm good. Okay. But if Pharaoh didn't believe that God sent Moses and he had to do those 3 signs, that's some hard-headed stubbornness. And this is how we are sometimes, right? Sometimes people have to show us things 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times in order for us to believe them or trust them. It's the same thing with God, right? We want 17 confirmations before we even move. And that's not how this works. So Moses claims, I'm going to move on from that, get off my soapbox. Moses claims he is not eloquent enough to say and do all what the Lord is asking, and he begs for God to send someone else. And God grew angry with Moses and asked him about his brother Aaron. Is there not Aaron, your brother, the Levite? I know that he can speak well. God tells Moses to share all with Aaron, and Aaron will become his mouthpiece, and Moses will be as God to him. Even after God has given all of these instructions to Moses, and see, this is why I got off my soapbox, so I'm about to get back on it. Even after God has given him all of these instructions and given him confirmation, like has actually shown him confirmations, and told him that someone will be there to help him with the task, Moses still didn't want to do it. He felt unfit for the job. He still had no desire to do it because he was like, there's no way you could have chosen me. There's no way that you would be sending me to this place that I killed this man, that I've been running for 40 years. There's no way. Who am I? I have a stutter. I don't speak well. And then these people are going to look at me crazy. How many of us have had confirmation after confirmation after confirmation after confirmation after confirmation after confirmation? And then God has even sent help our way, or sent people to help us build, to help us construct, to help us get this vision birthed out, whatever it is. And we're still like, we don't want to do it. I've been there. Not too long ago, I have been there. And one of the things I learned recently at a conference that I attended, I think it was Tara Body, that's how she said it, her name was. Tara Body said it, where in this world, we operate from a place of understanding and then we obey. We want to have understanding. We want to know what it is that's going to take place, how it's going to be, how it's going to manifest, and then we'll go. In the kingdom, it's different. You have to obey, and then God will give you understanding. Go, and he will prove it. And that's the thing with Moses. You just need to go do it, and God will prove it to you, as we will see. And this is where we struggle in the flesh, is the obedience. It's not easy. I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy. Day after day, it is not easy to say, I'm just gonna follow you. If you tell me to go left and keep walking, I'm gonna just keep walking until the blessings of God, the favor of God, the door of God, whatever it is, hits me in the face. I'm gonna just keep going. But if I didn't obey and made the left and I made a right, now I have all these obstacles and all. Not to say that you're not going to get obstacles going left, but who's to say that it may be less difficult going left as opposed to going right, which is walking in disobedience. We need to become better at obeying God. That is a part of our relationship. Okay, it was great in the beginning when people used to sacrifice the animals and sacrifice the blood of the lambs and sacrifice the blood of the goats and all of that. But scripture tells us obedience is better than sacrifice. Now that we're in the new covenant, Obedience is better than sacrifice, and we must obey. So when Moses approaches Pharaoh, Pharaoh responded in wickedness. He made the Hebrew slaves collect straw and make bricks instead of only just making bricks. So Pharaoh had his workers collecting the straw, giving the straw to the Hebrews, and the Hebrews would make the bricks. But now he's saying, we're not going to give you the straw no more. We're not going to be your supplier. You need to go find the straw, collect it, and make the bricks. And the amount of bricks that you were making a day, if you were making 10 bricks a day, that number can't go down. You need to stay consistent and make 10 bricks. So Moses then says to God, why did you send me here? Because now you've caused Pharaoh to do more evil to these people. And God reminds him of what he said about delivering his people out of the hand of Pharaoh and giving them the land of Canaan. God desired to keep his covenant from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He spoke to Moses and Aaron and gave them a charge about the people of Israel and Pharaoh, and that was to bring the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt. What is a charge? I'm glad you asked. A charge is a duty and responsibility that must be obeyed. In other definitions, to lay on or impose as a task, duty, or trust. It is also to command, to instruct, or exhort with authority. It is also to urge earnestly. So when you hear people say that God has given me a charge to do a thing, or a charge to handle a matter, or a charge for this assignment, that is essentially God giving them a burden. He is compelling them. He is earnestly wanting them to be responsible for this thing, to obey this thing, this command that he has given. And he gave Moses this command to go and ask Aaron for help, to tell Aaron all of the things that God told him, to share it with him. And Aaron would be his mouthpiece, and Moses would be the one standing there acting as if he was God to him. And as you continue to read the scriptures further, you'll see that Pharaoh put up a fight. And every time Moses would go and ask him to release his people, God would send a plague. And there were 10 plagues that God had to send before Pharaoh would finally let his people go. And even still, after letting them go, he chased them down through unto the Red Sea. And this is where Moses lifts up his staff and the Red Sea gets parted. And the Israelites cross over on dry land in between the waters, and Pharaoh gets consumed by the Red Sea. I say all of that to say, what is the charge that God has given you? This is about obedience, right? Notice that each relationship that we've talked about has something to do with obedience. If God has kept his covenant with us, with Noah, with Adam, with Moses, with Abraham, if God has established a covenant with them, there's a requirement of you to obey. And God has given you something to do. Something is in your hand. A book, a song, a screenplay, a Bible study group, a mentorship group, a whatever it is, a school, a business. He's giving you something in your hand. There's a charge for you to keep. It could be as simple as a prayer line. Because I know that I know that I know when God gave this to me, I felt the burden of this. The struggle that I had, or the challenge that I had, was when he wanted me to go from conference line to Facebook Live. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. Just like Moses, didn't really desire to do it, but I wanted to be held accountable for what it is you've given me, right? So I want to be able to remain faithful to you by serving you and doing this prayer line, but does it really have to be Facebook Live? And then I started doing Facebook Live, and then life has transitioned and changed where we are doing these videos and premiering them. But there's a charge that God gives you when He gives you this assignment. For those of you that need to do a conference, there's a charge, a burden that you feel to carry that conference forward. Those of you that need to create a merchandising line, t-shirts, whatever it is, there's a charge that you feel, there's a burden on the inside that you're carrying to get this thing to push forth and come out. Are you going to be obedient? Are you going to do what the Father has assigned you to do? If you're not in relationship with Him, if you're not obeying Him, if you're not asking for the instructions and the guidance that you need for this burden, you need to be able to manage the burden well. If an employee, this is the best way I can put it, if an employer comes to you and says, I'm assigning this task to you. Let's say you work in human resources. I'm assigning, and you did front desk work. And now they say, I'm assigning to you recruitment. So I need you to go on LinkedIn. I need you to go on Indeed. I need you to look up candidates, reach out to them, get a pool. Every time there's a job, send them those that might fit well with the role. We need you to reach out to them, schedule phone interviews, have the hiring managers meet with them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Go through the whole recruitment process. We need you to do that. Are you going to mishandle the work that they're giving you, the tasks that you're given? Or are you going to put your best foot forward and try to do it in the best of your ability, in the best of your excellence, right? In the best that you can perform this with the knowledge that you have? Are you going to seek further guidance to say, okay, let me see how I can do this better than the last, or how we can do this more efficiently? Or are you going to put your best foot forward? Or are you going to mismanage what you've been given? Who's to say that now you get this task and this assignment and there's a promotion waiting around the corner for you because you were willing to handle the responsibility in excellence? You may move out from being the reception person to now, okay, we're giving you an office, you're gonna get a title of director. And that might be an extreme jump, but you understand what I'm saying, where you will move up in that company because you're willing to handle the task. Speaking from experience, sometimes we get caught up in our emotions and our feelings and not want to do certain things. But when God has given you a burden, you can't run from it. You cannot run from it. Those that are intercessors know what it means to have a burden to pray. You may wake up in the middle of the night and can't shake a thing and be in prayer for 2 hours until there's a release. There's a charge that God has given you along with the assignment that He's placed in you. Do not ignore the charge. Walk in obedience today. You don't know what lives you're saving. You don't know what souls you're finding. You don't know what breakthrough you're holding up for people, what deliverance you're holding back. There are people waiting on you. There are people waiting on you. Keep the charge and uphold the standards. Keep the charge and uphold the standard. One more time. Keep the charge and uphold the standard. There is something greater on the other side. Moses got a lot of complaining, a lot of flack from the Israelites. After he set them free, he got a whole lot of flack. And he was like, listen, I am too through with these people. but there's a great reward for what it is that God has given you. You may save someone from committing suicide. God may use you to stop someone from committing suicide. God may use you to pull someone up out of depression. God may use you to heal someone's broken heart. God may use you to repair and restore someone that has been feeling lonely, that has been feeling rejected and abandoned. Your story may help them with their breakthrough. But it's the charge on the inside, the burden that you carry that God has given you for the thing. Walk it out till it's complete. Walk it out until you birth that thing forward. Walk it out until the vision becomes reality. You don't know if your financial blessing is behind that. You don't know if your breakthrough is behind that. You have no idea what the next door that's opening up or what the next opportunity that's opening up behind it. Be obedient. So I thank you for joining me for this Saturday's The Lord's Prayer. Every Saturday, we are here at the same time, same place, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tell somebody,